Alrighty, so March the 1st proved to be a bad night for Gervonta Tank Davis. This was a fight in which Davis was once again a prohibitive favorite to emerge victorious, but instead it turned into a long night for Davis as he failed to stop or outbox Roach. On top of that, he fouled and twice broke boxing protocol without suffering any consequences.
Damn, why y'all booing like I'm saying bullshit?
The boxing world criticized both the New York State Athletic Commission as well as Tank for failing to deliver. But it was former boxer Polo Malignaggi who appeared to cut the deepest when he had this to say about Davis.
There is a rumor that behind the scenes, the Gervonta, there's a lot of bitch in him. There's a lot of front runner in him. If you push him, he will break, he will fold.
So, is Malignaggi correct? First, let's establish that anyone who steps into the ring has some level of courage. However, once those boxers step through the ropes, there exist varying degrees of courage. Some fighters retain some semblance of common sense during wars and call it a day. Others are willing to sacrifice their well-being rather than to be stopped. So, stepping into the ring is one step. The second is how the fighter performs. So let's take a look at Davis's dossier and find out if Malignaggi is correct. First, Davis is often touted as the biggest star south of the middleweight division. He's managed to fill venues from the west to the east coast. But despite being the A-side, he's never been the true champion in any of the divisions in which he's fought. And despite being the A-side, he never fought the top dogs in Lomachenko, Haney, or Lopez. And so far, he has shown no willingness to fight the current lightweights, such as Shakur Stevenson or Keyshawn Davis. Instead, he's fought inexperienced boxers, such as Rolando Romero and Frank Martin, or guys coming up in weight, like Leo Santa Cruz and Hector Luis Garcia. The two boxers he fought who possessed speed and firepower, Mario Barrios and Ryan Garcia, ended up having to agree to dehydration clauses. We can only wonder if Davis would have fought them had they refused to drain themselves. By the way, this is what Tang had to say about the Garcia clause. I'm just making sure everything's fair. You know what I mean? I know that Ryan Garcia is a bigger fighter. He already has the advantage of the height, the size, the arm length, like everything. He has the most advantage. So I'm just making it a little fair. Everyone's done it before. It's a part of boxing. And by the way, when he says that everyone's done it before, he's talking about the rehydration clause. That's not entirely accurate. Only a handful of fighters have done it before, and they were often heavily criticized for it. Here, Tank is indicating he's weary of Garcia's attributes. Is he also letting it slip that he can't beat Garcia unless he takes those strengths away? The lack of top opposition, plus his penchant for special clauses, have led people to believe that Davis or his team lack confidence in his abilities. But what about his actual performances? Can we glean anything from them to support Malignaggi's claims? Perhaps. Despite fighting subpar opposition, Davis still ends up struggling with his foes. Little Leo Santa Cruz was teeing off on him. And Davis was lucky that the former bantamweight couldn't punch at 130 pounds. Late replacement, the limited Isaac Cruz, pushed him to the limit back in 2021. That same year, the aforementioned Mario Barrios fight proved another hotly contested bout before Davis bailed himself out with a body shot. In 2022, the wild Rolando Romero was going, at worst, neck and neck with Davis. That is until he ran into a bomb. Same thing with Hector Luis Garcia, Ryan Garcia, and Frank Martin. So as you can see, Davis was really getting by on power, not so much on skills. Still, what does that tell us about his heart? Well, in many of his fights, he refuses to engage, preferring to run out the clock, land a big bomb, and call it a night. Some might call this smart boxing, but if he truly was as dangerous as he claims, shouldn't he be running through his opponents, especially when many of them are severe underdogs or weight-trained? Moreover, this smart boxing take flies out the window when you see him boxing with the same intensity in close bouts against Barrios and Roach. The exception was the Isaac Cruz fight, a bout in which Tank threw more punches than accustomed to, perhaps because the Mexican's pressure forced him to. His lack of intensity, even in dire moments, doesn't speak well of his heart. Another negative from Davis is his clinching. As we've mentioned before, clinching is illegal. This according to numerous boxing organizations. Clinching, on top of being boring, usually shows that a boxer lacks skills and/or conditioning. And Davis, even against outmatched foes, has found himself clinging to them as if his life depended on it. Tank fans like to say that Davis was clinching so much against Isaac Cruz because of an injured hand. But rewatch that fight, and you'll see him hugging from the first round on. I don't blame him for hugging when Romero and Garcia hurt him. Clinching after getting stunned is one of the few times I excuse hugging. However, there are other parts in which he rushes in for a clinch. It's not even him running into an incoming foe and both falling into a clinch. He just seems to panic and leaps in for a hug. He also likes to clown around too much when things aren't going his way, almost as if he's trying to pump himself up. Or he starts having a conversation with the referee. The Roach Jr. bout was filled with similar examples. Let's look at what transpired in that bout. As usual, Davis fought cautiously early, but Roach was getting too close for his liking. Then, Tank began clinching and laughing. Davis let his hands go in the third and fourth, but found it difficult to penetrate Roach's defense. On top of this, Roach was connecting regularly. Davis also began twitching, staring off out the ring. He also incorporated more clinching and began conversing with the ref, a move that got him hit. But he continued the conversation after the bell. In the fifth, Davis conversed with people outside the ring and stuck his tongue out after going for a hug. So far, this might seem inconsequential, but the foul that followed made you wonder what Tank was thinking. Did he foul Roach because he couldn't dominate him as expected? Or maybe he thought he'd infuriate Roach into overcommitting? Whatever the case, Davis fouled in front of the ref, and nothing was done about it. Then, Davis got hit with a body shot and started frowning as if he'd been hit low. He followed it up with more jawing. To start the sixth, Davis caught a stray blow, turned to the ref, and complained for 7 seconds. The sixth saw more clinching and laughing from Tank. By this time, the fight was proving another tough affair, but this had a different flavor. In the Garcia bout, Tank had already dropped his opponent and knew he could do it again. And in the Martin bout, he knew it was a matter of time before the inexperienced Martin tired. Here, however, Roach, like Isa Cruz, wasn't going anywhere. And though Cruz is a bigger puncher than Roach, he was also wilder and easier to read in his attack, whereas Roach had more deception in his game, and thus perhaps more stressful for a Tank. At this point, let's recall this video's goal, which hinges on Malignaggi's comments.
There is a rumor that behind the scenes, the Gervonta, there's a lot of bitch in him. There's a lot of front runner in him. If you push him, he will break, he will fold.
So far, does it look to you as if Davis is looking to stall and sway the ref to his side? There was more clinching in the 7th round, including Tank playing up the tough guy angle. This followed more clinching, including this particularly egregious one. Look at this, he's grabbing onto Roach's leg. Is this what Malignaggi was referring to? Then came the infamous moment. Roach nicks Davis with 2 jabs, whereupon Davis looks at the ref, as he's been doing throughout the bout, then takes a knee. Taking a knee after absorbing 2 strikes, no matter how light they might have been, constitutes a knockdown. The referee, Steve Willis, a man who made a career out of making funny faces for the camera, failed to call it a knockdown. Making matters worse, he allowed Davis to run to his corner to get his face wiped by a towel. The rules state that the cornermen are forbidden from interacting in the ring unless allowed to do so by the ref. Tank then had another one of his customary convos with the ref, then proceeded to play tough. I think you get the gist now, but just to wrap this up, Davis continued clinching and arguing with the referee, who proved to be either incompetent or corrupt. So, are Malignaggi's sources correct? Is Tank Davis weak-minded? The safe answer is that this isn't an either-or issue. In other words, no one is ever 100% hero or 100% coward throughout their lives. There's gonna be moments when even the most hard-nosed individuals look for an easy way out. But I think we can also state that some people have more courage than others. And looking at how Davis has acted, especially against limited opposition, shows that perhaps the selective matchmaking, the special clauses, and his in-ring antics, without talking about his outside-the-ring ones, indicate a man who isn't that good at controlling his emotions, and perhaps he allows fear to sway his career. The most important question is, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join our free Patreon, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.